that we dug up while we were scouring the internet looking for things to talk about. And this is a little phrase by a woman named Jane Mary Jones, who I don't know anything about, except that she's a single mother and she's very proud of this, and I applaud single mothers, but apparently fathers are toxic for their children.
Yeah, I wonder if she thought that while she was making the baby.
Oh.
I don't know. Probably not, my guess is.
Well, it's funny because she said in the same exact interview that what she wanted in a man was, you know, a really manly man in flannel with an axe, but there always seems to be something like that. But she said, you know, there always seems to be something wrong with those guys. They're like Republicans.
Well, that's really bad news. Oh my goodness.
And I was like, girl, if you want a manly man, you're in the wrong party.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Women do want manly men. And so this whole idea of toxic masculinity is a big farce because every single romance novel and every single movie has a manly, masculine man who can be independent and strong and lead and protect and provide and all of those things. And that's what women want. It's inherent to our sex and who we are as women. And these feminists just want to keep denying it and pretending like, you know, that's not the case. Well, it is. It totally is.
Well, I think too, like when I think about the phrase toxic masculinity, I think that's so unfair because, like, there are toxic things about people in general. Mm-hmm. There are relationships, there are attitudes, there are words that are toxic, that hurt people. But to say that it's just masculinity,
I think feminism is much more toxic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, when it's that, you know, like proud, defiant, I don't need anybody else, only women are right, only women have sense, only women are reasonable, or, you know.
All women must be believed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think too with her comment, it's almost like, you know, we've got a little bit of virtue signaling. So she's a single mom, right? So of course she's going to say, like, you know, in defense of herself,
I don't need him.
I don't need
one in.
Because they're bad.
And like I said, like I think single parents should be applauded. It's a really difficult job. Yeah. But just because you can do it by yourself doesn't mean that that's the ideal.
Well, the whole difference was that she's saying she doesn't want to have a father figure for her son, which is toxic in itself because her son's going to end up being completely unable to be masculine in the true sense because he's not had a father figure to learn from.
Yeah. And I think that's so critical is that today, like, we've so skewed what true masculinity is and what true femininity is. Yeah. So we have this idea that masculinity is watching sports and roughhousing or whatever, and that's not really what masculinity is. We've perverted it to something that it's not, and therefore we say we hate masculinity, but it's really not real masculinity that we hate, it's the perversion of it. And same thing in feminism.
Such a good point. And I think like the Bible, like, really helps us get a picture of what masculinity is and what femininity is. And I think one of the things I heard a long time ago was that masculinity, or being a man, is being able to take responsibility. You take responsibility for your children and for your family. And they're under your care and under your protection. And I think that is such a strong position to have. And you're right, we have lost that. We have redefined it into something that is vulgar or that is
unappealing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of like Everybody Loves Raymond was like such an iconic show, and it was very funny, but you know, Raymond was always made out to be this dummy. He always screwed everything up. His wife was always mad at him. He was, you know, lousy. He just,
and that's every,
you know, and it's every commercial. The guy's drinking beer. He's doing something stupid. And you know what it is? It's white men too. It's the white heterosexual male. You know, that is under attack right now in our country for different philosophical reasons that we can get into in another episode. But the fact of the matter is that is society's now interpretation of, you know, manliness.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what really plays into this too is just for the last 20, 30 years we've been pushing girl power like nonstop, right? Mm-hmm. So you have all these little boys growing up who have no idea what it means to actually be a man. Because all they've been told their whole lives is we need to empower girls and we need to push up girls and they're suffering in school.
And they're suffering. Well, so getting back to like the quote, and we're talking about, raising boys, letting them be boys, and they need an example of that in the home. And so to think that she doesn't want the balanced counterpart for her son is insane. I was looking at a couple of statistics. So if she'd prefer, if masculinity is so toxic, she'd prefer to not have a father in the house. Here's some statistics. Suicide, 63% of youth who can commit suicide don't have fathers. 90% of all homeless and runaway youths don't have fathers. 85% of children that exhibit behavioral disorders don't have fathers in the home. High school dropouts, 71%. So to me, that is toxic. That is doing horrible damage to our society and community.
And I also saw another statistic, and I haven't verified it, so I can't say that it's sourced, but I did hear that boys that are raised by only their mother are 8 times as likely to grow up to rape women when they're older.
Wow.
So if anything, she's contributing to the very toxic masculinity that she's denouncing by not having a male in the home to be the leader.
Well, and I was reading a little bit more of the quote, and what she was talking about was the mistakes that fathers make. So she wants to shield her son from the mistakes that fathers make, and saying oh, well, you can't cry about this, or that kind of mentality. But who's gonna shield her son from her own mistakes? And we were talking about earlier, if there is such a thing as toxic masculinity, there is absolutely a thing such as toxic femininity, because
we're all sinners.
Because we're all prone to flaws, and we're all prone to mistakes, and we're all prone to anger.
But going back to what you were just saying about she wanted to shield her son from whatever mistakes the man would make, there's such balance in a mother and a father. They always say the father kind of gravitates towards truth, which is an attribute of God, and the mom usually gravitates towards grace, and that's an attribute of God. And so you have to have both components. The father will say, you did this, and you did this, and you did this, and it's true, maybe, and then the mother will say, oh, have some compassion on him, he's a child who's learning. And so there's this intersection of the truth of a father and the grace of a mother.
So mothers by nature are more nurturing and more, I would say, not affectionate, but you know what I mean, more compassionate, I guess. And then the fathers are usually a little bit tougher. They give the discipline, the justice. They lead. They show what leadership looks like. And even in the way that we play together as men and women with our children is so interesting. Women will sit and they'll talk and they'll read a book and they'll color and they'll be very interactive and intellectual sort of, and then men just want to roughhouse and throw them around and play with the balls and kick. And it doesn't matter if it's girl children or boy children. This is just the way that men and women play differently. So this poor boy that this woman's raising, and all single parent children, are missing out on that other component, and they're not getting the full joy of being in a family because they're missing out on those missing pieces that need to be there for a child to have, a well-balanced upbringing. And there's so many studies like the one that you were sharing, but others too, that time after time after time, they repeatedly show that children do better in a two-parent, mother-father thing. And that's because that's why God made it that way. It's on purpose for a good reason. So it's just so sad to see that she feels that way. And even though it's an old story, it is still very permanent today. So decorum.
I can't do it.
Come on, I gotta go grocery shopping. Let's go.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Elephants in the Room.
Be sure to like and subscribe. You have to do that, Kurt.
Below.